Welcome to our channel. Let's uncover the life story of Richard Branson, the maverick entrepreneur who turned rebellion into billions and proved that breaking rules can build empires. From a dyslexic teenager struggling in school to commanding Virgin Atlantic jets across the globe, Branson's journey reads like a Hollywood script written by pure audacity. This is the story of a man who didn't just dream of reaching the stars. He literally built a spaceship to get there. Buckle up, because we're about to dive into a life that redefined what it means to be an entrepreneur in the modern world. Picture this: July 18th, 1950, in Surrey, England. A baby is born who will one day challenge British Airways, launch people into space, and become one of the most recognizable faces in business. Richard Charles Nicholas Branson entered the world to parents who would unknowingly nurture a future business revolutionary. His father, Ted Branson, was a successful barrister, while his mother, Eve Branson, was an entrepreneur in her own right, running various business ventures. But here's where the story gets interesting. Young Richard wasn't your typical future billionaire. Growing up in the English countryside, Richard faced a challenge that would have derailed many: severe dyslexia. School was a nightmare. Teachers couldn't understand why this bright, energetic boy struggled with reading and writing. Traditional education felt like torture, and Richard often felt like a square peg being forced into a round hole. But his parents, especially his mother Eve, saw something different. They recognized that their son's mind worked differently, not defectively. Eve Branson was particularly influential, encouraging Richard to think big and take risks. She would later say that she raised her children to believe they could achieve anything they set their minds to. This unconventional upbringing in a household that valued adventure over conformity would prove to be Richard's secret weapon. At just 16 years old, most teenagers are worrying about exams and weekend plans. Richard Branson was starting a magazine. Fed up with traditional school, he convinced his parents to let him leave and pursue his passion project, Student Magazine. This wasn't just teenage rebellion. This was strategic revolution. Student Magazine became a platform for young voices during the turbulent 1960s, covering everything from the Vietnam War to student protests. But starting a magazine with no money and no experience, that's where Richard's genius for problem solving emerged. He convinced famous personalities to write for free, secured advertising through sheer persistence, and turned Student into a cultural phenomenon. The magazine's success led to an unexpected pivot that would change everything. Readers kept asking where they could buy the records featured in Student Magazine. Richard saw an opportunity and launched Virgin Mail Order in 1970, selling records by mail at discount prices. The name Virgin came from their inexperience in business. They were virgins to the industry. But inexperience didn't mean incompetence. When a postal strike threatened to kill the mail order business, Richard made a bold move that epitomized his approach to challenges. He opened a physical record store on London's Oxford Street. Virgin Records was born, and with it, a business philosophy that would revolutionize industry after industry. The 1970s and 1980s marked Richard's transformation from entrepreneur to business icon. Virgin Records signed groundbreaking artists like Mike Oldfield, whose Tubular Bells became a massive hit and provided the financial foundation for Virgin's expansion. But Richard wasn't content with just selling music. He wanted to create it. Virgin Records became a label, signing controversial and innovative artists that other companies wouldn't touch. The Sex Pistols, Culture Club, and Genesis all found homes under the Virgin umbrella. Each signing was a calculated risk that paid off spectacularly. But Richard's ambitions extended far beyond music. In 1984, he made a move that shocked the business world, launching Virgin Atlantic Airways. Taking on British Airways, one of the world's most established airlines, seemed like business suicide. Industry experts called it impossible. Richard called it Tuesday. Virgin Atlantic introduced innovations that seem obvious now, but were revolutionary then. Better food, more entertainment, superior customer service, and most importantly, making flying fun again. The airline wars that followed were brutal, with British Airways allegedly engaging in dirty tricks to eliminate Virgin Atlantic. But Richard thrived on competition, turning every challenge into a marketing opportunity. The 1990s saw Virgin expand into telecommunications, retail, and financial services. Richard's philosophy was simple. If an industry treated customers poorly, Virgin could do it better. This approach led to Virgin Mobile, Virgin Trains, and dozens of other ventures. Not all succeeded, but Richard's willingness to fail fast and learn quickly became legendary. He understood that in business, you're either growing or dying. There's no middle ground. Richard's personal life has been as adventurous as his business career. He married Joan Templeman in 1989, and together they built a family while navigating the pressures of running a global empire. Joan, often called the stable force in Richard's life, provided the grounding that allowed him to take incredible risks. They have 2 children, Holly and Sam, both of whom have inherited their father's entrepreneurial spirit. The family splits time between London and Necker Island, Richard's private Caribbean paradise that he purchased in 1978 for just $180,000. Today, Necker Island serves as both a family retreat and a high-end resort, embodying Richard's belief that business and pleasure should intertwine. But Richard's story isn't without controversy. His aggressive business tactics, flamboyant publicity stunts, and willingness to challenge authority have made him enemies. Critics argue that his rebel with a cause persona is carefully crafted marketing. Others point to Virgin's mixed business record, noting that many ventures have failed or underperformed. Environmental activists have criticized Virgin's aviation businesses for contributing to climate change, even as Richard invests in green technologies. However, Richard has consistently used his platform to advocate for causes he believes in, from LGBTQ+ rights to climate action, often putting his reputation and resources on the line. The 2000s brought new challenges and opportunities. The dot-com crash, 9/11, and various economic downturns tested Richard's resilience. But each setback became a setup for a comeback. He sold Virgin Records to EMI for $1 billion, using the funds to expand Virgin Atlantic and explore new frontiers. Space tourism became his next obsession, leading to Virgin Galactic, a company dedicated to making space travel accessible to civilians. After years of development, setbacks, and one tragic accident, Virgin Galactic achieved its goal in 2021, when Richard himself flew to space, becoming the first billionaire to reach space in his own company's vehicle. Today, Richard Branson's net worth is estimated at approximately $4 billion, a figure that represents not just wealth, but decades of calculated risk-taking and innovation. His business empire spans airlines, space travel, telecommunications, healthcare, and entertainment. Virgin Group employs over 70,000 people worldwide, but Richard's influence extends far beyond corporate balance sheets. He's authored several books, become a sought-after speaker, and established the Elders, a group of global leaders working to resolve international conflicts. What can we learn from Richard Branson's journey? First, that dyslexia, failure, and unconventional thinking aren't barriers. They're advantages for those brave enough to embrace them. Richard turned his learning difference into a superpower, developing communication skills and strategic thinking that served him well in business. Second, that customer service isn't just a department. It's a philosophy. Virgin's success across multiple industries stems from a simple principle. Treat customers like human beings, not transactions. Finally, that taking risks isn't reckless if you're prepared to learn from the consequences. Richard's willingness to fail publicly and adapt quickly has been his greatest asset. Perhaps most importantly, Richard Branson proved that business can be a force for good. His commitment to environmental causes, social justice, and innovation shows that profit and purpose aren't mutually exclusive. In a world where many billionaires remain distant figures, Richard has maintained his humanity, using his success to create positive change. If you enjoyed this journey through the extraordinary life of Richard Branson, like, comment, and subscribe for more legendary life paths only on Celeb Path. Until next time, keep dreaming big. And remember, the word impossible is just an opinion, not a fact.